want you to think of a spectrum. Just draw a spectrum, like a line. And at one end is we've got it all together with God and everyone else. And we're able to love our enemies, and we're totally attached to God, and we're totally attached to people. The other end of the spectrum, you're totally detached from God and you're totally detached from anyone else. And then picture and ask yourself the question, I wonder where on the spectrum I am. Because, you see, we're all somewhere on that spectrum. And probably the most, if I could say this, when you get overwhelmed, or when I get overwhelmed, or when somebody offends me, or when things don't quite go right, or when I'm corrected, in terms of that spectrum, you offended you, overwhelmed you, triggered you, where do you go on that spectrum? I listen to people, and I listen to their stories, and I watch people walking by, and I know the pain, because we've all got pain, and we've all got attachment pain. And what this community, what God wants this community to be, is a community where we actually love one another when we're in pain. And we don't let go just because we've got attachment pain. Because remember who you are, Max. Remember who God created you to be. That's the sort of people that we have to be, that God wants to bring in. So wants to bring people in so they can actually see this, not in a textbook, but see it written on the face of the person who greets them when they come in and takes them through stuff. We have to be able to love the one who loves us the way he loves us, which means if you love God, you've got to love his family. God, the fundamental architecture of a person is loving God and loving one another. Remember Jesus said, when asked what are the two greatest commandments, he said the second one, in the Greek the word means the second one exactly the same, love your neighbour as yourself. Do you realise, you need to understand in church, every pain, every bit of attachment pain that you have will be triggered. And do you know who'll trigger them most? All your attachment pains, anything associated with parental issues and everything else, we will trigger. Now, what are you going to do? You're going to bolt, or you're going to hang around and say, I'm attached. Because, see, we are images of God. Do you know what God does? God so attaches to us. You know, two bits of contact, and they come together, and you cannot get them apart. Well, that's God with us. He's not going to let go. And so we have to be like that with one another. Now, it's painful at times. It might just be somebody, you know, somebody who just gets on your goat, or just irritates, somebody who talks too much, somebody who just won't stop talking. We ought to be able to say to one another, hey guy, mate, those RCs, they're off, mate. Can we help you? That's what we've got to, that's what God wants.